Hello, this is Somnath from Somnath's desk. Today we are going to talk about the differences between HTML5 base versus native-based roadmap to mobile development. Before we start, let me spend a minute talking about Assist at a glance, our organization. Assist was established in 1993. It's a global provider of IT solutions and services, and our development teams are globally distributed. We have a very strong federal practice, a large set of commercial accounts, and we're very strong also in the education and the nonprofit sector. This slide shows you a partial list of our customers, and as you can see, we have a very strong mix of customers from all sorts of areas. Now, without waiting anymore, let's go into our talk. But before starting, let's try to take stock of the smartphone sales as of Q4 2010. This charts have been pulled up from Gartner reports. And as you can see, the Apple iPhone is about 16% of the global smartphone sales. Android constitutes about 33%. Symbian still is about 31%. And the rest are distributed among the miscellaneous. Now, the lesson to be learned here is it's still the pie is divided and there is no clear winner, and you really have to contend with all these different smartphones. Now, how do we go developing apps for those? So the horses are either you build natives, which are listed on the left hand side, that is, use Objective-C to build iOS applications, use Java or C++ to build Android applications, or use Java J2ME to build BlackBerry.net for Windows Phone 7. And WebOS provides you an HTML way of building applications. So either you can back these five horses, or what some people are preaching these days is taking an HTML5 way to back one horse and get and distribute and deploy your applications across all these devices. Now, this talk serves as a framework on how to make these decisions. So, the first thing is let's understand what are the different decisions which are involved. The considerations are, can we really build a feature rich app using HTML5? And even if we build it, will it perform? What will be the developer tools that will look like? What is the end user experience? And finally, can we make money? It's the economy, stupid. So let's take these considerations at a deeper level. So the first thing is feature richness. Now, native apps, as we know, they can access the hardware. You can track the GPS location. You can access the camera for audio, for video, for still photography, and for video photography. You can access the accelerometer and other sensors. You can also interact with the other apps in the ecosystem and the device ecosystem to get notifications or to change the home screen, for example, in Android. Now, can mobile browsers do that? Well, the mobile browser developers and the people in that camp will say, yeah, mobile developers can do offline storage. They can access geolocation and they can do amazing graphics using Canvas. They can also do native audio video playbacks. And they can also access the camera, not in the web form, but there are ways to access the camera. And Android 3.1 even allows camera interaction using web standards. The latest versions of iOS browsers allows WebSocket for two-way streaming and device orientation detection. So as you can see that the feature richness, the mobile browsers are lagging, but still they're coming on very strong from behind to provide all this feature richness. So just to illustrate the point, when you're building an application using one track or the other, make sure that you know how to interact with the camera, do the photo album, or do audio video playback, or find a location, or use devices like the the compass, for example. The other aspect which is becoming very strong is the 3D visualization, not only for games and stuff, but also for enterprise applications. 3D visualizations, OpenGL is very important. And so the question is, how are you going to grapple with these things using the HTML5 route? Very important consideration. The next thing is performance. Well, native applications, as you know, they'll run directly on the metal. And they can leverage the GPU acceleration for any graphics intensive operations. And they can also use multi-threading model. So while you are fetching something on the background thread on the network, you still do not have to make the user wait for it. The user can still scroll through. These multi-threading models can create a very rich end user experience. Can we do that with mobile browsers? Well, mobile browser supporters will say, have you looked at JavaScript performance, especially lately? Have you looked at JavaScript engines like V8 from Chrome? They simply rock. Their performance have gone through the roof in just over last 2 years. The performance have gone through like 5x improvements. Also, there are new attributes, new features like web workers, which will make multi-threading possible. And even graphics acceleration and access to WebGL is showing up in mobile browsers. So all in all, the performance in mobile browsers may not be all that bad. Next thing is, what will the developer experience look like? In native apps, we have a robust languages like Objective-C or Java. There are many developers who are familiar with these things. They can use strong desktop emulators and also sophisticating debugging tools which comes with these toolbox like Xcode or Eclipse. Can we have a similar experience when we are going through the HTML5 route? Well, the HTML5 proponents will say, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, this entire paradigm is known and understood by so many. There's so many people who can easily jump on this bandwagon. And a thing which many people miss out is most modern browsers are shipping IDEs which are built in with the browser itself. So you can click the developer link or the menu item and a developer thing shows up within your browser itself where you can inspect objects, where you can evaluate objects, where you can debug your session. So very interesting capabilities. And also there are several modern libraries, things like Modernizer. I really like this. I want to call out Modernizer, which can provide feature detection libraries. Depending on what your browser feature provides, it can take appropriate action. The next link gives you a Google talk from Google I/O, which talks about mobile web, how to go from zero to hero. So developer experience, even though again, like native apps will give you the most powerful developer experience, but mobile browser developer experience are not that lacking or not that behind. The next, of course, is the end user experience. When you build native apps, well, the biggest thing is when you build apps for iPhones, the first question people ask is, does it conform with Apple's HIG, the Human Interfaces Guidelines? There are certain idioms which you must have. Without that, your app doesn't really fit into the global family. And native toolkits make it very standard, so you automatically get it. While doing it in the mobile browsers, you are actually taking a different route. Now keep in mind that you can always start from the basics and then apply progressive enhancement, which is a methodology of applying additional style sheet depending on the features which your browser provides. Now, if your browser is the state-of-the-art mobile browser, you can do all kinds of things. For example, for an iPhone, you can create rounded buttons, glossy icons, and transitions which are expected of an iPhone app. So the end user experience, even though for the mobile browsers, it'll be somewhat stunted, but you can work towards making it look almost like a native app. The last consideration is the economy stupid. Using mobile browsers app, can we really make money? In the native side, there's Apple App Store and Android Marketplace. We constantly hear about nerd to riches stories again and again. And there is this entire ecosystem of being able to browse apps, being able to search, rate, recommend, the discoverability aspect of this. Now, what happens when I build a mobile app? Well, you have to depend on the search-based discovery and traditional ad revenue. You can even charge for your service by doing a SaaS-based revenue. The positive on this side is there's no letting go of the 30% of the revenue that you have to give away to Apple, for example. Well, these are the considerations. Let's take a different track and understand what these big leaders are doing. Are they telling us one thing and doing something else? Well, let's take a second on what Apple is doing. Well, Apple for most parts is totally native. It's to their advantage to have a completely native uh, ecosystem because they make money off that. Although we are noticing that because of WebKit roots and Safari, they are using HTML5 as a fallback position. So it's not that they're totally shunning HTML5 or removing it, but they are supporting it to a certain extent. Google, on the other hand, is a very strong proponent of HTML5. They have to drive it for their Chrome OS devices. And also, what we are noticing is they're hiring a lot of native developers, even iOS developers. They're doing that like crazy, and they're even letting them operate as small startups within the Googleplex. Pretty interesting. But the most interesting thing is what Facebook is doing. I believe Facebook is the strongest proponent of HTML5. Have you looked at their Project Spartan lately? Project Spartan, they want to create the complete Facebook experience and an app store and a crediting model completely on HTML5. And apparently they have some 60 or so smartest developers who are building an HTML5 version of this. Well, why would they do this? The link here actually points you to some articles, which are, of course, conjectures at this point, but they'll tell you that they are aiming squarely at Apple and Google because of 700 million population of users they have, and they can create the most compelling experience. So, what Facebook is doing, I believe, is something which we all need to watch out for. But anyway, I wanted to summarize what we have learned from this talk. The basic conclusions is choose your apps. When you're choosing a track, choose the apps. If you're building the next game, of course, the HTML5 route is not there yet. But if you're building simple information oriented apps like a newsreader or a mail oriented CRM system or a timetable app or any social networking viewer app, maybe HTML5 is a very strong contender. And you can check out the performance of Gmail, Amazon, and Twitter on the mobile web. It's really not all that bad. So you can choose your apps to find out the right track. Secondly, you evaluate your internal expertise and your existing investments. What do I mean by this? Meaning, do you internally have or you have the capability to hire native developer rock stars? People who can make Angry Birds like experience. If you can, native is the way to go. But on the other hand, you might have tens of years of experience on web investments. You've built your web applications, you've refined them over time. Do you want to reuse some of these investments? Then maybe the HTML5 is the route for you to go. And then finally, you can also take a hybrid approach. Some of my best customers say that there's no letting go of the native experience for our primary target, whatever that primary target is for you. And after doing that, you might choose HTML5 for the rest of it so that you still have coverage and outreach. You're not letting go of these other platforms. And PhoneGap is a very good tool to accomplish that. You can create a Chromeless browser. You can still build your app using web app, and your Chromeless browser will be embedded within your native app. That way, you can have the HTML5 for the rest of it. So that's the summary of my talk today. I wanted to thank you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach me at spanergy@assist.net.